I was trying to find more about her, particularly what moved her to Orlando, because I thought that would be great if she was also just like a big Disney fan. But it was actually really hard to find a lot of information about her. So our focus for this episode is on her series, Basil of Baker Street, which was when the copyright was renewed for a third time in 2016, was rebranded as The Great Mouse Detective. The first book, Basil of Baker Street, introduces the Sherlock Holmes of the mouse world, Basil, and his trusted companion, Dr. David Q. Dawson. The mice idolized Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson and even built their mouse town of Homestead in the cellar of 221B Baker Street for the purpose of being able to observe the detective and learn his methods to apply to their mouse world. And she writes this series to introduce Sherlock Holmes to younger readers. She loves Sherlock Holmes as a reader. She wants to instill a love of mystery and intrigue from an early age, introduce Sherlock Holmes. So she writes her own stories. As a Sherlock Holmes enthusiast, she actually dedicates the first two books to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's youngest son, Adrian M. Conan Doyle, with whom she's acquainted. And he even sends her a letter after the publishing of her first book that says, quote, "May I offer you my heartfelt congratulations. It is a simply wonderful creation, and I can assure you my father would have reveled in every page." Like, how sweet is that? That the actual Conan Doyle is like, yes, I approve. Love it.
What a boon.
So all of her books are actually dedicated to members of the Sherlock Holmes community. Adrian M. Conan Doyle, also the Baker Street Irregulars, with whom she is a member, and also the Sherlockian scholars. So her full love of Sherlock Holmes is fully in these books. The books are illustrated by Paul Galdone. He illustrated hundreds of children's books, including both of Titus's series, Basil of Baker Street and the Anthill books. He was posthumously awarded the 1996 Curlin Award for his contribution to children's literature. And while the books were rebranded as the Great Mouse Detective series with new cover art, his illustrations are still featured throughout the first 5 books written by Titus. So Titus's 5 books. We have Basil of Baker Street, Basil and the Cave of Cats, Basil in Mexico, Basil in the Wild West, and Basil and the Lost Colony. What's interesting is when you look at this set, and Connor and I had this discussion, when you look at the set online or you buy it, the second book is Basil in the Cave of Cats. However, the 5th book, her last, quote, last, is actually the second book. Basil and the Lost Colony was published in 1964, whereas Basil in the Cave of Cats is the 3rd book published in 1971. So I'm not sure why in the series, when you buy it and when you Google it, it puts Basil and the Lost Colony 5th, because I did read all 5 books.
Yes. Extra credit.
It is, because I thought maybe it was kind of like an Indiana Jones moment where like Raiders of the Lost Ark is first, but really the next movie chronologically comes first. Like, I thought it was one of those, but it's not. Basil in the Lost Colony, the first book is in like 1885. Basil and the Lost Colony is in 1891, and then Basil in the Cave of Cats is in 1894. And he even references at the end of Lost Colony, "Oh no, the Maharaja's in trouble. I'm being asked to go east." And I'm like, wait, so why are you last? It's weird. So that being said, we encourage you that if you do, or at least Connor and I encourage you because we discussed this, if you do decide to read this series, please go in publishing order, which would be Basil of Baker Street, Basil and the Lost Colony, Cave of Cats, then Mexico and the Wild West. Basil is super well traveled.
Yeah.
Very.
So when the series was rebooted and picked up in 2016, again, 3 more books are added, authored by Kathy Hapka, but Eve Titus is still also credited as the first author. So it's Eve Titus and Kathy Hapka. And 3 books include Basil and the Big Cheese Cook-Off in 2018, Basil and the Royal Dare 2019, and last year, Basil and the Library Ghost.
That one sounds intriguing to me.
So I find it so interesting because all of us said we were not aware of the series, even though The Great Mouse Detective has the title credits based on the book by Eve Titus.
Yeah,
I don't know why I never cued into that earlier until the last couple years, and I forgot about it until I watched it. It was a couple weeks ago, Courtney, when I texted you and you're like, maybe this is what we should do as our episode. I don't know how I missed that, but obviously it's been popular enough to be immediately picked up by Disney after she concludes her 5 books. And also, got 3 new books in the last 5 years. So bringing it back, it must have been popular enough. And it was even named one of the, quote, 13 detective series you obsessed over as a kid by BuzzFeed. So I don't know how I missed it.
Wow.
I missed it too. I don't know how either.
I don't know how.
I just ignored the main titles. That's really all that I was too busy singing the song that I was dancing around that I missed it.
So to get us into the book overall, so as a podcast, we read the first book as a team.
Some of y'all did extra credit.
Basil of Baker Street. I had the time. We also found that all of them are available as audiobooks on some on Hoopla, also Overdrive, and they're only about an hour and a half a piece. So
yeah, they're great.
Combo of reading some of them. I got all 5 from the library, but I read some and I also listened to some. So Connor, you and I got to experience the audiobook. So before we get into The Great Mouse Detective, you listened to it on audiobook. Why should we listen to these books via audio?
Well, I mean, it's narrated by Ralph Lister, who does truly just such a fantastic job bringing all of these characters to life. It's narrated beautifully. It was just such a breeze to listen to, and he's got a British accent. He dignifies these books and he narrates them with the same sort of intensity that you would expect from like a full Sherlock Holmes book, but it's they're mice. So I mean, it was fantastic. I listened to Basil of Baker Street, then I read Basil of Baker Street so I could get the illustrations, and then I listened to Basil and the Lost Colony because I went in publishing order. Now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if the reason why they moved that to number 5 is because it has that Reichenbach Falls sequence that is so indicative of the final problem in the Sherlock Holmes ones, which is the last one. That's the only reason, but otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
We'll get there.
Anyway, I fully the audiobooks, they're such a good time, and they are super available.
So going off of the first book, Basil of Baker Street, want to hear from you all. Where did you see parts of the original source material in the film?
So I really loved that we still had that really obviously strong connection between Basil and Sherlock Holmes himself. I loved being able to see Sherlock's silhouette playing the violin. Love that. And I think the main mystery to be solved, the main crime about, the connection between fathers and their children is in the book and in the movie, and I really love that. So I think the parent-child connection between Flaversham and Olivia is very inspired by Hawkins from the book, the love for his and sacrifice that he will make for his children. That's in the source material. So I'm all about the heartstrings, so I loved that. And I think the allusion to mice having their own society with the existence of the Queen in the movie is very much based on, we get more of Homestead in the books, of course, but just the fact that mice totally have their own little microcosm of a world happening with a leader, with law enforcement, criminals, the whole thing. And we get them in the same disguises as we see them in the book as well. So they're dressed up as the captain and his mate. And I thought that was really fun because that was very overtly connected to the book when so many other things have been changed. And so that was really enjoyable for me, especially having seen the really, really adorable illustrations in those disguises in the book, which I just loved. So I loved seeing them in the same type of sea shanty type outfits. I loved that.
Yeah, I read the book before rewatching the film. And so when I was kind of like, oh, this isn't what I remember, because we'll get into the differences. But those costumes in particular in the sketches, I was like, oh, no, that's a thing. That's definitely part of the movie. I did like that, like the film, the book was narrated by Dr. Dawson. And as I said, I haven't read Sherlock. Is that narrated by Watson or no?
Yes.
Okay, so that's following that same kind of format there. So that was fun for me to see that connection, but it was pretty limited in that regard.
Yeah.
I mean, I also, okay, my nerd is about to come out. So, I mean, yeah, we also have the seedy pub sort of situation. It's not the same way.
There's no burlesque show.
There's no burlesque show, but the real nerd in me, the fact that coal dust is an important clue at a location to the location that they need to go to, because coal dust is on Fidget's note and then coal dust is on the doorstep. This is because my brain works this way and I've memorized basically all of the Great Mouse Detective, the film. I was just like, oh, coal dust, that's a thing. And so I wrote that down. But I'll also say, having read ahead into Basil and the Lost Colony, in their search for the Lost Colony, they have to reach out to the Faversham sisters for information, which very quickly becomes Flaversham for the film. So it was cool to see, that sort of moment where the name is pulled from somewhere else in the series. And then the clock tower sequence is also very similar to I know we're going to talk about this probably some more, the Reichenbach Falls scene from The Final Problem, which appears in Basil and the Lost Colony as the Biken Rock Falls, where they just sub the B and the R. Who knows why, but it's fun. But that was something that was there as well. That was from the series that got plugged in.
Yeah, I was going to say, from differences, there's a lot of differences, but from reading the entire series, I think this is one of those moments where Disney, Courtney and I, we've had this discussion about some other books we've read where we're like, I don't see this. Maybe it's in book 2. But the fact now that I actually did read this series, I can see that they did pull a lot. It was Mary Poppins.
Yes, that was it.
Where we're like, maybe they pulled some of that from the second Mary Poppins Returns more than... Also, like, Alice in Wonderland is both Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. They pulled a lot from the series in general. So, like, while I guess it's kind of also, I'm leaning into our differences a little bit, but while there's no particular plot of overthrowing the queen, all of Ratigan's plots across the 3 books he's in are about usurping power from a monarch of other countries. But he has a thing for usurping power of other governments.
I love that.
That's a thing. So that's consistent, and it's still that wackiness a little bit. With it was in, I forget now if it was the Wild West. I think it was Wild West, Basil in the Wild West. Like, Ratigan creates fake cheese that keeps breaking everyone's teeth, so they keep going to the dentist, but he's blackmailing the dentist to get the money from everyone coming to get their teeth fixed.
Brilliant.
To fund his next takeover. It's very out there, but it fits Ratigan a lot. And it fits, like, what we see in The Great Mouse Detective of how do you go from, I want to take over all of Mousedom, but your solution is, let me build a toy replica of the queen. Like, why is that your solution? So I feel like they pulled a lot of the essence, the character, the Sherlock elements really well. And I do think we do see a strong Basil and Dawson from the source material. They're definitely the two that they clearly had to make sure they brought into The Great Mouse Detective.
So we've touched on it a bit, but what from the film feels very different from the books for you?
Well, I mean, to start, the entire plot is original, and it's not outright taken from any of the books in the series. In many ways, I think it's a smart move on Disney's part, because we, in Basil of Baker Street, come into Dr. Dawson and Basil having an established relationship.
Yeah.
So it's always fun to see what was the mystery, what was the crime that sort of brought them together. So I liked that difference about them. I liked that now when you read the series, it's not like, oh, well, I know how this is going to end. They're truly just like more adventures that you can just ingest. So especially if you are a younger person, and you're one of those people who's an avid reader and like plowing through Magic Treehouse and you're like, I need more. This vibes with that. I also think, difference wise in terms of scale, the movie in this movie compared to Basil of Baker Street, the scale of the movie feels a little bit larger. The themes and consequences are all a little bit more higher reaching than the terrible three trying to take over Homestead. Instead, we have Professor Ratigan trying to take over all of Mousedom and kill the queen by feeding it to his pet cat. So, I mean...
Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia. Exactly. So, I mean, those are some of the more general differences that I have. Also, a burlesque scene.
Stop talking about it.
I will not.
You've hit the differences for me. The big one that stood out to me right away was that Dawson and Basil have that relationship. I do like that we also found the founding of Homestead, and it's a little bit more connected than the film to how much they idolize Sherlock Holmes. Whereas the film, like, we see him and Dawson like in scenes, but there's not a very deliberate like, I recognize that I am the Sherlock Holmes of the mouse world, where he does. And I think that also makes the stronger connection that if her goal is to intrigue you to want to later in life read Sherlock Holmes, you feel like you know him already because you know him through Basil. And Basil is very, very, very similar to Sherlock Holmes. But I am curious from Caroline and Courtney. So Conor and I, because we read some other books, we did get to meet Ratigan. And probably one of the biggest differences I would hear from you is that Ratigan is not in the first book.
Yeah, I was very taken aback by that. I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me, where is Ratigan? I'm here for the world's greatest criminal
Where is the musical number?
So I am glad to hear that he is in these other adventures. I really think that I will pursue the additional audiobooks. They're about the same length as the movie, as short little listening things. Maybe in downtime between podcast listening, that would be great to continue these adventures because I really did like it. In terms of the plot, I did feel we got a little more deductive reasoning from Basil. Like there were more scenes of him interacting because, of course, we've expanded the universe of characters in this separate kidnapping plot. So we got kind of, I think, more of those Sherlock Holmes qualities through showing versus telling with Disney, where he's like just literally dressed as Sherlock Holmes. It did make me wonder, though, about the development of this film because it was in development for a long time. Like, what were the original story beats? Were they closer to this? How much were they combining? But now I'm thinking this would have made a great series for the Disney Afternoon 90s.
Yeah.
As a spin-off. Because I feel like they're setting that up in the end of the film, and just like the books, which have these cliffhangers, I'm assuming in each book as the first one did, like that's a way to take you from episode to episode. So I think rather than a theatrical sequel or one of those 90s direct to VHS sequels, a television
So not the
series.
Adventures of Atlantis?
No,
Not Adventures?
not Return of Jafar. Though I would take Return of Ratigan. You know what? I'm on board if Vincent Price was still around. But I feel like a TV series would have been a great way to continue those elements that were different from the book and like maybe get some of those stories told. What about you, Caroline?
Disney Plus, you listening?
Yeah,
Yes,
right?
please.
I thought the same thing. And I think I can't explain exactly why, but I think if I was younger, I would have watched a TV series. And part of that is because another one of the big differences I noticed is we definitely meet a lot of colorful side characters in the film for sure. Like Fidget's there. We've got a lot of different side characters, but I loved all of the characters they met in the books. I loved the really talkative grocery store owner. I really felt for Hawkins. And so I don't think it needs to be exactly the same, but I thought that they were all really evocative and great parts of putting together the mystery. So I missed a bit of that, but another thing that was different for me, not to be a broken record, was just besides the burlesque scene, just a slight adult element. The burlesque scene, the smoking, sure. There's just something to me that just felt a little bit more, and with the scare moments, that just felt a little bit more adult. And for me, the book feels a little bit, with that element taken away, a little bit more timeless, where maybe because I know the other Disney films of the era of Great Mouse Detective, it feels very of that Disney era to me, whereas the books feel a little bit more timeless. So I think there's just a little bit of a modern twist to the movie that isn't really present in the books.
See, I think that's an interesting point because then Connor and I, going back to Connor and I's discussion, we were saying how we thought these books were slightly more adult. Not adult maybe, but when I think of like other children's mysteries I read, or like when you think of like what would you write as a mystery for kids, you're like, who stole the candy? Where the missing bicycle? Like it's very still kid friendly, but she talks about kidnapping. Where do you steal power from governments? And just like the film, like the mousetrap scene, like that is decently violent. We are in Warner Brothers territory here of, dropping anvils.
You know what it is for me?
She does the same. She doesn't talk down to her readers.
Yeah.
She has elevated language. The deducting skills are pretty elevated, but also the crimes themselves are pretty serious crimes.
I read a lot of, it's not exactly the same age range, but I read a lot of, I was obsessed with Nancy Drew. And I remember a couple of Nancy Drew books really scared me. And I was thinking if I was reading this book as a kid, I don't think I would have felt scared. So maybe that's why. I think Nancy Drew had some really creepy elements to it, but that's a little bit of an older age group too.
But these were also written, in the 60s and 70s. And I think we've seen this with Disney films. Like when we talk about Snow White, and everyone credits, Walt wasn't afraid to be dark. Also, our tastes have just changed. Or like what we expect to tell children in, maybe 50s, 60s, 70s. Like this wasn't, we're thinking like, wow, we're going straight for the kidnapping here. And talking about overthrowing governments and, killing monarchs. But that might not have been so like it might be today.
Yeah.
Or at least in my head. I also teach high schoolers, so like what I see them do, I just imagine what younger kids are doing. It's like very, very like PG or G rated versus PG-13, which is the world I live in my job. So I could also have a totally morphed perspective here. But that's what I would imagine.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I'm 100% with you where I do feel that Eve Titus isn't talking down to her readers. It does feel a little bit more sophisticated. It feels in the same sort of world as like a Kenneth Grahame Wind in the Willows style, as opposed to like Babysitter's Club sort of situation. So I enjoyed that. But were there any parts of the book that you all liked better than the film, or parts of the film that you might have liked better than the book?
Well, I am a big musical theater fan. It's clear. We all are. And I think the musical moments are some of the strongest points of the film. So I missed out on that element. I listened to the audiobook while I was reading along too. I was like, it'd be cool if there was a song here. But in terms of the plot, I did find myself just as wrapped up. I think that's accurate for the first part of what I liked better than the film. I mean, it's hard to compare because it was a different plot. It follows the same beats of a kidnapping, but instead of a missing father, we have two missing twin daughters, and I felt just as invested in their story from the get-go, or what's going to happen to these two twins, and following the clues all along the way. So I think because the heart of the characters is still there, I was able to jump right in and adapt to the book, even though I was like, where is the movie plot in here? But loved it just as much.
I did this in the same order that you did, Courtney. So I read the book and then I rewatched the movie, or watched the movie for the first time. And there was something about the book, and maybe it's because I've read the Anatole books with the kids that I babysit, and really they love those. I love those. The book felt very comforting to me. And even though, yes, there's a kidnapping and it's pretty sophisticated, there was something about it that felt very warm. And there's something to me personally about the movie that's just a little cold. I think a lot of it honestly has to do with the color scheme that we were talking about. It just gives me a certain kind of feeling. And I think I would have loved a bit more of the whimsy that the book offered in terms of Homestead and the Mouse Town. I loved that. And also just the fun that they had in the book with the mice using human transportation to their advantage and finding out, if a human was going the same place they needed to go, they'd hop on the back of the carriage. Just that kind of fun adventure style. I missed that a little bit in the movie. And I think there was also a big opportunity in the film to take advantage of the scale of the mice and have a little bit more fun with that. That like of just like, human sized items that the mice use as something else. I think there could have been a bit more fun had with that, and I missed that. And I think that overall for me is why it doesn't feel as warm as the books. And I think I liked the book better, honestly.
I think they both stand alone very well. I liked those aspects from the book as well. I like that we got to know Dawson and Basil a little bit more personally. I think one of the main criticisms of the Disney film is the lack of character arc or the lack of connection to knowing the character. What we get from the book, though, is we learn their quirks. We learn their things that they're interested in. We get to see Basil make his violin. Like, that's so endearing to me.
I love that part.
And also the fact that he's bad at the violin. Like, he's just learning it because he's like, I want to be like Sherlock. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, whereas in the film, he's like just as much of an aficionado. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, the characters were great. I do agree with Connor, though, that I think what the film does better plot-wise is that it is a little bit higher stakes. And also we get to spend more time. I think the villain is stronger in The Great Mouse Detective, the film. If we're just going off of the first book, the villain is stronger. I feel like it's still a good tradition, like good mystery of, it's a kidnapping. Like, that's very intriguing on its own. But I feel like The Great Mouse Detective, the film, because we have a stronger, better villain right away, to get that in the series, you have to read the whole series. You don't get it right away from the first book. So for me, the film, I think Ratigan was better in the film overall than in the entire book series.
Yeah.
He's good, but I feel like in the film, he's a lot more devious. And I think it's just because we get to spend more time with him. The whole book series is through Basil, which, yes, they're the main characters in the film, but we do get those moments where we get solely Ratigan, where he's talking to Fidget, where, greatest criminal mind. We get a lot of Ratigan, and we also kind of get a Ratigan arc in a way where at the end, he really breaks his usual form and really becomes an evil villain. I think they describe like he becomes an animal, whereas everyone else kind of maintains their anthropomorphic characteristics. He really becomes a street rat, not Aladdin, an actual street rat.
But he holds my heart in the same way Aladdin does.
Whereas in the books, he's I think a little more true to the Moriarty of Sherlock, where he's a much more refined villain, and he stays a refined villain in the books, which is still a good villain. But I think the film really ramped Ratigan up a notch, and I will leave Connor to tell us why the film is great.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll get into that. But I mean, in terms of which I liked better, I think generally speaking, I enjoy the story of the film better. I love the high stakes of it. I love the locations. I love the mystery. But it's hard to say which one is better because I think they are kind of at odds with one another. They're just so different plot wise. But I definitely do think that the movie could feel like it would fit in the book series as like the end, like as if all of these mysteries were working up to this one final grand moment. So you just sort of have to take away the fact that Dr. Dawson and Basil don't know each other in the film version of The Great Mouse Detective. But I could also 100% see the stories of the book being made into future movies or a series. I still hold out hope for that somewhere in the cockles of my heart. But, I think in the film you can, because it's visual storytelling, you get to see a little bit more of the deductive reasoning side of things. Like you get to see the things that Basil is seeing that like you don't necessarily get to in the book. But I feel like both the movie and the book rely a little bit less on that as a concept and more on Basil being just generally smart and holding a lot of information. I think the movie more so than the book. In the film, I got frustrated by how many times Basil knows that it's Fidget that he's dealing with, but he still refers to some bat that left peculiar footprints and a list that was gummed by a bat. Who could it be? I'm like, Basil, it's Fidget. You know this. We know this. You saw him, bro. Like, you know what this is. And I think conversely in the book, Basil's sort of like, this is what it is because I think that is the answer, and now let us move on to the next point. So that's another sort of like thing that sort of feels at odds with each other, and maybe it gets better as we get further into the series. I only read 2 in, but I live for the reveals of when Sherlock just sort of like, dusts out his magic. I don't know what analogy I'm making here, but he just sort of like goes through the whole thing. And I don't think that Basil does that as much, I think, in either. So maybe this is fully nitpicky. It's a children's book. But yeah, that's just what I had to say. I think generally speaking, I'm team film.
Well, let's get into those characters and how they're specifically similar or different from the film. We've each been assigned a character, so I'll kick us off with Basil. And I think, Connor, you did a great job on initially touching on those. But I feel like there's like a certain suaveness more to him in the book, because I think he more closely resembles what I understand from Sherlock. Certainly, character-wise, what we don't get in the book is his interactions with children. I mean, yes, he helps rescue those 2 kidnapped girls, but what we see in the film is he's a bit annoyed by Olivia and doesn't want her to tag along. So I found that to be a bit of a negative quality, just because I've decided Olivia is my girl, and I'm like, don't you treat her like that. So I find perhaps the book Basil a bit more patient than our film Basil. I mean, they're both heavily inspired by Sherlock Holmes, and they are masters of their trade. But there were some subtle differences there.
And then I think one of those differences too is the relationship with Dawson. Of course, as we've mentioned in the movie, they're meeting for the first time. But I think Dawson also takes on a bit more of a comedic sidekick role in the movie, whereas in the book he feels like they're a team. They kind of balance each other out in terms of their book smarts versus street smarts kind of thing. But in the film, Dawson, first of all, is a bit more put off by Basil and how eccentric he is. And then he also just gets a lot of comedy moments. Of course, with his drink getting drugged at the burlesque show, we get his silly moments. And then he's also a bit more of the heart of the pair in the movie. He's the one who's really drawn to Olivia and who is on her side, and is the one who is listening to her and advocating for her. And like I said, in the books, he and Basil feel like more of a team. And I've always been a big fan of the Watson archetype, and I really enjoy both versions of Dawson, whether more serious or comedic.
Well, I had Ratigan as my assigned character. Big surprise.
Oh, did you?
We did this all for you.
I'm so appreciative. And I don't think that anyone has mentioned the fact that, did you know that Ratigan doesn't appear in the first book? But like I had said, I read on to the second book that was published, Basil and the Lost Colony, where we get Ratigan's first appearance in the series. So I'm going to be taking from that as I sort of talk about the similarities and differences between the film and the book in terms of Ratigan. So he's still the world's greatest criminal mind. He's still running a gang and is the ruler of the mouse underworld. He's still, the parallel as Sherlock Holmes has Professor Moriarty. He is that to Basil. However, one very interesting thing is in the book, it is very, very clearly stipulated that he is a mouse. I know, because I personally love the fact that he is a rat. I think that is just so much more interesting in terms of character to like, what does it mean for him to be a rat, but basically try and gaslight everyone around him into convincing themselves or treating him as if he was a mouse? What does he see in mouse qualities that are different from that of rat qualities? It just builds more questions in your brain that make you just think about the character a lot more than just be like, oh, he's the mouse, but he's evil. He's a rat, but he wants to be a mouse, and he's evil, and he's doing this, and he's controlling all these other creatures. I just think that that's just so much more compelling. And then it also makes it even more terrifying when that facade crumbles in the film and he becomes this animal. You see the like hair, like before you only see his dainty little tail and he has his hair sort of perfectly coiffed, but you see the three-piece suit rip. You see the hair on his back. You see the claws like come out. His tail, he's crawling on all fours. He's bounding. And I think that in the clock tower sequence of the film isn't something that we see ever in the series, the book series. And for me, I think that makes it just a little bit more compelling, you know, storytelling plot wise for me. You also get to see his ego in the film a little bit more because you get those moments where it's just, as Emily said, where it's just him. And you get to see how he exerts power over people, how he uses mental tactics. I also thought in the book, you know, we don't really get to see a whole lot of the ruthlessness. We don't get to see how ingenious he is. Just that he was in Basil and the Lost Colony, we just sort of know that he is one step ahead of Basil. Not like what are the moments that he does to sort of like devastate the plot. And I think the film's Ratigan has much more personality, panache. We see a lot more of how vicious and how devious he is, what he's willing to do, how he treats his friends, all of that sort of thing. And then lastly, I think Ratigan's demise is a big difference. In at least the first two published books, Ratigan survives, and both he and Basil are saved from Bike and Rock Falls.
By the dog.
Not Toby.
Not Toby, which is sad. But they're both saved, and then Ratigan is like going to prison, and then there's an orchestrated sort of like jailbreak moment, and he's sort of spirited away. But in the film, obviously, it's sort of implied that he did. And I don't like that, to be completely honest. I feel like he could survive it. I'm not ruling out any sort of Deus Ex Machina moment happening. Maybe he's friends with a crow or a pigeon that swoops in to save him. Who knows? It could be anything. But that was like one takeaway is like in the film, right out of the gate, the first adventure between Dawson and Basil, the biggest villain ever eats it. Whereas in the book series, it's more drawn out. So, I mean, in that sense, I think it's I lean on the side of the hope that we get with the book series that Ratigan survives. But while they are similar in terms of the role that they serve, they are very kind of different characters in the way that they go about things. And yeah, it's pretty interesting.
So I had all the random other characters.
Yes.
And we get Mrs. Judson, who does not make cheese. Was it biscuits?
Cheese crumpets.
Crumpets. Sorry,
crumpets.
it just escaped me. Those lovely cheese crumpets of yours. She makes cheese souffle, which I don't know. That might be a little bit more, higher level cooking skills here. Cheese souffle. I don't know. I'm not a chef. I'm not a pastry. I'm definitely not a baker.
Yeah, that's a higher cooking skill. Souffle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, souffle is tricky.
Especially with the amount of noise happening in that area.
Gotta talk to Remy. It's like a whole mouse rat.
Oh my god.
I mean, he's in France.
Yeah, not too far.
A lot. Who knows? So Mrs. Judson is there. she's exactly how I think she's pictured in the film, where she's
Mhm.
just this happy woman who is taking care of the house. They call her the mousekeeper. And she just seems so lovely and polite. But I'm trying to think of other characters that persist, and really beyond Basil, Dawson, Ratigan, and Mrs. Judson. There's some villains that persist throughout the book series, like his who are part of Ratigan's gang, but they're not in the film. So I really think those are really our cast of characters that we see consistently. You already brought up the Flaversham, how they're in the Lost Colony. I'm really curious now about, Courtney's idea of the two.
Oh yeah, that's gonna haunt me.
Sorry, y'all.
No.
I'm gonna go write IMDb trivia and just make that a thing, because anybody can
Please do.
submit.
True. And they're part of the Flaversham family. Like, little does Olivia know, her aunts. Who knows how that is coming to be. But character-wise, those are really the only staple characters that carried over into the film. We see Toby. As soon as I read Lost Colony, I was like, oh, here's our Toby figure. I believe his name was Elmo.
Yeah.
In the book. And he saves Basil. He's integral to their expedition. Basil climbs a lot of mountains in these books. That's like a thing, to which I'm like, we can now make the Great Mouse Detective part of the Adventurers Club, because
Ooh, yeah.
they have their own secret society of mouse expeditionists from all around the world. It's their
And
own.
are they partnered with the Rescue
I was gonna say
Aid
that
Society?
sounds a lot like the
wow.
Rescue Aid Society.
All right, this is part of our next podcast. We're gonna fan
Deep
fiction this
lore.
all connected. But those are the other characters. So I saw some of those remnants. I saw a couple characters, but really in the film, that we don't spend a lot of time with others, where like in the books we do get some time talking to the grocer, talking to Hawkins, some more aside characters. I really liked in Basil in Mexico. He creates his new band of irregulars because he needs new kids who know the area to help be his informants. So Courtney, that was an interesting thing that you latched onto, that he's like, ugh, Olivia. But in the book, he's like, all people in the community have value to my deductive reasoning skills. Kids are great. They know things. So that is a big difference. But yeah, overall, those were our characters. Main elements, I agree, got there. But there are a lot of differences. So to close up, overall thoughts of the book. Do you think the film did the book justice? Recommending this for readers? Anything we just want to finish up with? We're going to start with Caroline.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this to young readers. I was thinking the whole time of the young boy who I babysit who's in 3rd grade, and I'm going to send him this because he will absolutely love it. Like I said, he and his brothers love Anatole. It's like literally all about this mouse who becomes an expert cheese taster. It's absolutely adorable. He's like, the predecessor of Remy. Very cute. And I think there's something about Eve Titus's style that, like I said, is very warm and just detailed enough that children can understand it, but will still hold their interest. And I enjoyed the book more than the film. It could be because I came to the book with fresh eyes and already knew from having sort of seen the movie before that it isn't one of my favorites. It's so funny. I had been thinking we've already talked about it, but I would love a TV series. I think it is totally begging for it. I think it would be a great way to maybe draw some kids now back to the film, is to give us a little Disney Plus series. I think that would be awesome. But yeah, I think what it is overall is just this film. It's from a Disney era that just doesn't vibe with me. I'm not against darker elements in Disney movies at all. I am obsessed with Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'm obsessed with Frollo. I love that we go there. But for me, this isn't the same kind of darkness. Same with The Rescuers. For me, there's parts of them that it's not dark, it's unsettling. And there's space for that in Disney movies, but it's just not my personal favorite vibe. I don't find it super enjoyable or even like that unique exactly. So I am team books. I'm definitely going to audiobook the rest of them. I'm so curious how they depict Ratigan. But yeah, will I ever come back to this movie?
Yes.
I don't
You are coming for all of my the fact
I'm
that you
sorry.
dropped the Rescuers in here.
I know.
Caroline, are we gonna have a podcast?
I know. This is why we have a podcast. This is what makes it interesting. It's because you know what? The Rescuers, it's not, I like the Rescuers much more, but again, there were parts of it when I was younger that really disturbed me. It wasn't just scary, it disturbed me deeply. So, and I also feel like I know, I feel like I know everything I need to know about the movie every time that Connor talks about it. So I'm like, why do I ever need to rewatch it? Like, I'll have Connor retell the plot to me.
Well, I have hope that a Disney Plus series could come, maybe from our lips to Bob's ears.
Yeah.
Y'all got, I like to believe that you got Brandy Cinderella added to Disney Plus because of your enthusiasm.
Thank you so much.
Even without a series, I did enjoy both the book and the film. I think they complement each other nicely. Like, if you're interested in the world of the film, definitely explore the world of the book. As I also said, I want to now follow up with those additional books. I think this is a great series for younger readers. We actually had one of our listeners tweet us today with the promo for the episode. She said, I'm reading this book right now with my son. What serendipitous timing. I'm like, absolutely, this is a great one. I have fond memories that I've shared of my dad like reading Stuart Little and different chapter books to me at bedtime. Like, I was probably old enough to read them myself, but it was fun to share that moment, and I could see this one being a great one where it's short. I read it in under an hour because I read really fast, and I put the audiobook on like 1.5 speed. I can do this. But you could break this into a few nights of a bedtime story.
Yeah, I think exactly the same way as you, Courtney. I think the film did the book perfect justice, even with the title change. I think the spirit of the books is captured perfectly, and I think the Disney storytellers shot it up with some ounces of adrenaline that I loved. And then, I would 100% recommend this series to young readers and older readers. I enjoyed this immensely, and it was really nice to like not have my brain work super duper hard on like a big, complicated, quote unquote age appropriate book. It was nice to just sort of like have a popcorn moment or like sit outside on my front porch of my parents' house and just like have something to read. And it's got a nice pace. The characters help make the characters of Sherlock Holmes more accessible as kids grow up, which I think is just so great, is that there's room to grow. Like as kids read this, they have something to grow up into. And I mean, it's a series. Who doesn't love to spend more time with the world and the people that they've grown to like over the course of a book? And so I fully intend on reading these books with my nephew, who is about to be born any day now. So we're gonna read these books together. We're gonna FaceTime. We're gonna watch the movie. I'm gonna hold him when the jump scares happen, and we'll watch the burlesque scene together. And I'll just cover his eyes when he needs to cover his eyes.
I echo a lot of sentiments about the book. I thought it was great, and I just don't know how I didn't know about these as a kid. I don't know how I missed it, even though I watched the film so many times. I guess, having those opening credits in the beginning, that's kind of like, let me turn it on and then I'll go get my popcorn in that like 2 minutes that there's not action happening. I don't know how I missed these books because I had so much fun reading the 5 specifically written by Eve Titus. And now I'm curious to see what the 3 that they've added in the last 5 years are and how Basil and Dawson, move forward. Does Ratigan continue?
Yeah.
Do we get the Ratigan demise?
I love that they rebooted it. Like, I feel like they're trying to go after Geronimo Stilton right now, which is like another mouse mystery book that a lot of kids like. And I feel like they're like, no, we did it first. And they're trying to come for it.
But I appreciate they're doing a reboot in its original format.
Yeah.
We could talk about reboots on a whole nother episode.
Do y'all think there is a place for Great Mouse Detective in the Disney parks? Would you like to see it? Is there a place for it? Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I have thoughts.
I'm sure.
Tell us about the dark ride.
No, we don't need it.
Caroline,
no.
Stop talking. It's my turn. Literally, I have written down, never underestimate the power of a dark ride. I want to see a Peter Pan's Flight style dark ride where we get in Ratigan's Zeppelin and we go through the story. Is that too much to ask? I don't think it is. That's the answer. That's the representation that we deserve.
But it'll be like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Exactly.
Yeah, where you go to hell and it's just awful and scary and
burlesque show, hell. You know, it's an e-ticket right there.
It's a burlesque show in hell.
Each Zeppelin will have like a little thing on the back of like a fidget that like pedals. Like
that would be funny.
Like, come on, wouldn't that be awesome? It'll be awesome. Disney Imagineering, reach out to me. We'll make this happen.
As much as I would really love that dark ride, combo Peter Pan's Flight plus like a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride vibe of Great Mouse Detective. I don't know if I necessarily see it in the parks, but I think they could drop it more of those touches for fans like Connor and I. I never played Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, but was Ratigan ever a villain in that?
I didn't either.
I don't think so.
I would be surprised if he wasn't. Honestly, they did some deep cuts, but like
things
once.
like that, I think are where it can be appropriately placed, like having him, or in Phantasmic where we have the villain montage, just add him in for like that 2 seconds.
Or build him his ride in the UK pavilion.
We don't need Mary Poppins. Let's have Ratigan.
Honestly, though, if they told me, Connor, you don't get Mary Poppins anymore, which broke my heart, but we will give you Professor Ratigan, I will beat that drum forever and a day.
Oh my god.
But I think
why not both?
That's what I'm saying, really.
But for me, I think those small touches, or like how in different gift shops you have like the artwork or little figures, or like we have Cinderella's mice hidden in places. Why can't we just see like a Basil just like hiding somewhere looking like in the UK pavilion, but put him like just a small one in the gift shop somewhere that, you know, he's solving a mystery and Ratigan's up in the rafters, but they're like size appropriate. Like little touches like that, I think would be really fun that the super fans can have a chance to geek out, because I know it's a small portion of us. But it gets space, and it doesn't take away though from those IPs that would be better in the parks.
My thought was similar, to have kind of an Easter egg, because I feel like there are things like that on Main Street. When you go to the Emporium, there's a sign that says proprietor Osh Popham, and that's actually a character from Summer Magic. I felt like with the UK pavilion, rename one of the shops Flaversham's Toys, and it's a nod to Olivia's father. You know, you can still sell merchandise there, but it's in that name that if you know, you know, and that's a great little wink and a nod. And you could have artistic elements, as you were suggesting, Emily.
You could also build like a little stage, like a small mouse-sized stage in the Rose and Crown pub.
Stop.
Where maybe like
little audio animatronic
one time every hour, you know, you get a little performance of "Let Me Be Good to You."
Sure.
And there's a little fidget just sitting at the bar with his little beer.
I also love when the bar fight is happening, Fidget is just like he is completely unfazed by all of it. He's just like, it's another day. Bless that bat.
He's like, I'm part of Ratigan's gang. This is nothing.
Oh my god.
Fight a cat. Then tell me.
I had the exact same idea of having little figurines in the UK pavilion. But, you know, I think a great thing Disney parks could do if they want to draw some attention back to the movie is to have some sort of, you know, they have the missions around World Showcase, and you got to find some clues from Phineas and Ferb. What's his name? The platypus?
Perry.
Of course. They had they had, you know, the thing with Perry. I think they could do something where you help Basil solve a mystery around the World Showcase. I think that would be fun. I think that'd be fun.
And that really, the books, they all take place in different countries.
Oh my gosh.
What a great idea. And then you make a Disney Plus TV show so that the game has a tie-in to the Disney Plus TV show.
Yeah. Oh my god. We've cracked
Done.
it. Okay. All right.
And then the dark ride.
No. The only other thing I want Ratigan to have a nice big part in the Not So Scary Halloween parade. Like, I want him to be featured in that.
Would be great there.
Yeah.
Because the walk around character does exist. All right. So as we usually close out every episode, if you love The Great Mouse Detective as much as Connor and I do, we want to just give some additional resources for you to check out so that while we wait for the dark ride, you can have your fill of Great Mouse Detective.
I mean, if you have enjoyed my take on Ratigan, definitely listen to our episode, The Rats of All Our Dreams, of Poor Unfortunate Podcast Season 1. We have a cool interview with Emily Jacobson, who created Ratatouille, and we talk about Ratatouille and Ratatouille the musical, which Emily sort of launched. But then I go into a full-on rave about Professor Ratigan. So if you cannot get enough of Professor Ratigan, that is your episode.
And if you're like me and don't necessarily need more of the movie per se, I highly recommend The Villainous Game, in which you can play as Ratigan. Ratigan is part of the Evil Comes Prepared expansion pack. So he comes with Scar and Yzma, so that sounds amazing. I haven't played as Ratigan yet, but oh my gosh, I love Villainous. Villainous is amazing. And so if you don't know, in Villainous, you're playing your specific villain's objective while, avoiding the other players blocking you and your specific villain's hero trying to thwart your efforts. So the villains, like I said, are still fighting against the heroes from their films. So the cool thing about Ratigan in Villainous is he's the only villain in Villainous with 2 possible objectives. And it can switch in this way. So he's originally in his superior mind form. And his goal is to get the robot queen to Buckingham Palace through a series of card plays on the location board. But if the Basil hero card causes the robot queen to be discarded, Ratigan turns to his rat form. And his objective is simply to just destroy Basil, either using his allies or using a marvelous trap card. So Villainous is very complicated. And so the fact that he has 2 possible objectives, it sounds so intriguing.
And I slay as Ratigan.
I have no doubt.
For me, I'm just going to suggest check out the rest of the series. I really enjoyed Eve Titus's original 5, and I'm looking forward to checking out the 3 that have been recently added.
As I mentioned, Disorder, of course, covers it in their journey through Disney films. I believe that's episode 26. If you want more on kind of the behind the scenes and the broader picture of Disney from the 80s up until The Lion King, Waking Sleeping Beauty is a fantastic documentary that's available on Disney+. And also on Disney+ is a bonus feature called The Making of the Great Mouse Detective. It really felt more like a promo and some quotes from different people working on the film, but it's about 7 minutes. It's actually a bonus feature on the Blu-ray, but as I've kind of advocated for in the past, I'd love to see more Blu-ray bonus features on Disney+, and this one is included. In the meantime, that's a lot to keep you busy, but in May, we will once again be joined by a guest from our podcast party episode earlier this year. We'll welcome back author and WDW radio host Lou Mongello to talk about his latest book release, The Disney Interviews, Volume 1. Lou is the author of the Walt Disney World Trivia Book, Volumes 1 and 2, and 102 Ways to Save Money for and at Walt Disney World. And here's an abridged description of the Disney Interviews from Amazon. The Disney Interviews is a collection of one-on-one conversations with Imagineers, artists, actors, musicians, magic makers, and Mouseketeers who worked for and with Walt Disney and the Walt Disney Company in the creation of the Disney parks, movies, television series, and legacy, or were instrumental in helping preserve his legacy and history. Among those interviews are Julie Andrews, Marty Sklar, Alice Davis, Dave Smith, and so many more, so we're looking forward to interviewing Lou about all of these, so be sure to stay tuned for that next month. You can keep up with us on social media at Book of the Mouse on Twitter and Instagram, or email us with comments or ideas to bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com. And please be sure to review us on iTunes so others can find our podcast and read and listen along with us. You can follow me, Courtney, on Instagram at GreatGuthsby, or on Twitter, Courtney_Guth.
And you can follow me, Emily, on Twitter and Instagram at the same handle, at Emily_McD. And Conor, Caroline, how can we keep up with you and Poor Unfortunate Podcast?
So you can find Poor Unfortunate Podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Poor Unfortunate Podcast. And we are also on Twitter, where we are at Unfortunate Pod. And you can find me on Instagram. I am at Carol Aim.
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I am at Connor Perkins with one N because it's the Gaelic spelling. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
So be sure to check that out. We'll have all of your information in our show notes. Courtney and I cannot rave about Porn Unfortunate Podcast enough, and we look forward to your future episodes as well as hopefully some future Disney trivia games to, defend our title on E-Tickets Broadway's Trivia Night. As always, we like to close our episode with a quote, and as our guests, you guys get to do the honor. So how would you like to close us out today?
So I will definitely be singing my quote, which is a little bit of Goodbye So Soon from The Great Mouse Detective, sung by none other than Professor Ratigan. Feel free to sing along at home if you'd like. Goodbye so soon, and isn't this a crime? We know by now that time knows how to fly. So here's goodbye so soon. You'll find your separate way. With time so short, I'll say so long and go. So soon, goodbye.
I don't think we've ever had a singing quote, so this is a fantastic first. Thank you both so much for joining. This was so much
fun. Oh my gosh, this is great.
The Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.